Okay, so we shall connect back to chapter 3. So last time we were talking about the final topic, not the final topic in terms of karma in chapter 3, and that is the illusion of control, right? So if you look at it, there is then I think the verse 27, 28, 29 is illusion of control. Then Krishna summarizes the whole concept of karma yoga in the next few verses. Then there is the final topic of the chapter, which is the nature of desire. Very interesting insights of Krishna. I think about 4 or 5 verses on desire. So on the final topic about karma is the illusion of control, right? So illusion of control, where did we deal with it before? Chapter 2, right? So if you look at Gita, and I've mentioned this before, chapter 2 contains the entire philosophy of Gita, right? But in a brief way. Some of them a little bit details, but a lot of it in a brief way is dealt with in the second chapter. So in second chapter in its entirety is the philosophy of Gita. All the other chapters take some topics from the second chapter and go much in depth into those topics, and then whatever results from that, more details in the later chapters. So probably from chapter 3 to chapter 17, you see all these different aspects of second chapter in a lot of detail. Okay. Chapter 18 is again the summary of all of Gita, is chapter 18. So basically, chapter 2 and chapter 18 are kind of similar. One is a brief introduction to the whole philosophy of Gita, chapter 2. The other one is the summary of the whole philosophy of Gita, which is chapter 18. So, in chapter 2, Krishna has already dealt with the illusion of control, right? So, in chapter 2, what does he do? He teaches about the 3 principles. See, man suffers because of 3 things, right? He says, one is identification with the body. But when the changeless identifies with the changing, that's the basic concept, right? That's where suffering starts. And the principle that he expounds is, there is a changeless jiva and a changing deha, right? So that is the first, this discrimination between the changeless and the changing. In Sanskrit it's called nitya nitya vastu viveka. Understanding the difference between what changes and what is changeless. That is the first basic understanding to do any sadhana. Without that, you are not stepping back from this change to cause a transformation to that, right? Unless you step back, you do not, you'll not be able to transform, right? So that is number 1. So this is our old student.
Good morning.
So, right, and what is the second principle that Krishna talks about in the second chapter? Illusion of permanence, right? So when the changeless is dealing with change, it has 2 illusions. One is what? Illusion of permanence. Again, illusion of permanence is the way that nature has endowed us to deal with complexity, right? You can only think about one change at the time by ignoring all the other stuff. Otherwise, our mind does not have the resource to deal with the complexity of multiple changing things. So what does the brain do? Without us even knowing, it ignores all the changes and lets us focus only on one or a few of them, right? So, but that is, again here you should see that evolution or Prakriti and Purusha, they have 2 different directions, goals. Prakriti wants us in Prakriti, right? What does Prakriti want? Ahara nidra bhaya maitunani. Prakriti wants us to eat food so that we survive. Nidra, have good sleep. Bhaya, fear so you survive. And sex so that you reproduce, and that Prakriti goes on forever, right? That's what Prakriti wants. Prakriti doesn't want you to become mukta, right? Prakriti wants you to be in Prakriti, and all the instincts that nature has given us, is to perpetuate nature for eternity. And it does, right? Nature has no beginning, no end. It always is a cycle. So nature wants us to do this. But if you do this, you're always suffering. So one of the ways that nature wants to do this, perpetuate the suffering, right, is to give us an illusion of permanence. So that we can, it's a way of dealing with the complexity of how the world is. The world is always changing, but you cannot deal with always changing world. So what you do, you ignore all the change and only deal with a certain change. So for us, to go about in a sane way in this world, you have to think that everything is permanent or everything is going to be as it is. And that is the second delusion, right? And Krishna's solution to that is what? What is Krishna's solution to the illusion of change? Or even not illusion of change. Change is constant. Illusion of permanence. What is Krishna's solution in second chapter?
It's detached attachment.
Right? Change management is what? Not to be attached and not to be detached. Right? So it is detached attachment. That is how you manage change. And what does that mean? See, Nitya, I said Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. What does it mean? Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka means what changes is forms. What remains constant is essence. Right? See, there is a beautiful verse in Ishavasya Upanishad, and I pray, use that every day. It says, Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham tattvam pushan apavrunu satya dharmaya drishtaye. Very beautiful. It says, this golden disc, Hiranmaya Patra, golden disc, has veiled the truth. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya mukham, the face of truth is veiled. Right? Apihitam. Tattvam pushan, O God, apavruno, unveil that, satya dharmaya drishtaye, so that I can see the truth. That means what it says is, what nature has done is, our focus is on that which glitters, which is Hiranmaya Patra, means what? Shining, right? That which makes headlines, that which makes lot of noise, that which is in our face. Our attention goes to that, right? That's what natural instincts are, to focus on that which glitters, that which seeks our attention very fast. But what we ignore in that is the essence that remains the same, but it is always in the background, right? If you go by headlines, headlines change every day, right? If you go by glitter, glitter changes every day, because you cannot be enamored by the same thing unless there is novelty. You don't focus on those things, right? Glitter has to change, but the underlying essence is unchanging, right? So Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka is, do not focus on the Hiranyaya Patra, but focus on Satyasya Mukha, right? So that training to focus on what is Nitya means you need to know, you need to separate the weeds from what is of real essence. And that does not happen naturally, because nature tells us, hey, go with that which gets your attention. But sadhana says, hold on, think about it, see what is behind it, that is the truth. Don't go by what is in your face, go by what is behind the mask.
That's also what we study when we do Shreyas and Prayas too, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Outward versus inward.
Inward, yeah. Prayas is that which seeks your attention. Shreyas is that which is behind all that, but that which endures through all these changes. So what changes basically is that superficial thing, but what endures is the underlying essence. Right? So Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, or the dealing of change, the detached attachment is what? Detachment to what is superficial, attachment to what is permanent. Right? So you are not, when we say detached, that means you are completely disinterested. We don't want disinterestedness, right? We want us to be interested. But we also don't want to be completely attached to superficial things, because that keeps changing. So what we need is to be attached to what is permanent and detached from what is superficial. Right? That which makes noise, that which tries to seek attention, don't give it much bhav. It will go away. Because when you don't give attention to it, it dies off, right? The that it gets, that the power is your attention. When you give attention, it becomes stronger. When you don't give attention, it dies away. Then there is Satyasya Mukha. Right? Tattvam Pushan Apavruno. Unveil that mask, unveil the superfluous glitter, so that I can watch the face of the truth. Very beautiful prayer. It is in Ishavasya Upanishad, also in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Both Upanishads have this very beautiful prayer. So that is illusion of permanence. And then there is illusion of control. Right? So illusion of control is what? What does illusion of control say?
It gives you the impression that you are in control of the outcome.
Exactly, right? Illusion of control is saying what? It says, what nature does is, it makes us assume as an instinct that we control more than what we do. Right? We control more than what we do, which we don't. And which is what this verse 27 is. Krishna says, Prakrutehe kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. That means, and I said, this prakriti is three things, all together. Prakriti is nature, prakriti is Ishvara Prakriti, prakriti is Jiva Prakriti. That means man's nature, God's nature, and nature. All the three together is here. Krishna talks about it here. Prakrutehe gunaihi kriyamanani karmani. That means Prakriti's gunas are the real cause of action. Ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. Deluded by ego, and I'll talk about what this ahankara is, but deluded by ego, a person thinks, I am the doer, I did it, or I am doing it, I am the doer. And that is an illusion of control. We all have illusion of control because actions are done by Prakriti, but we think we did it. Right? Now what does it mean now? We need to understand the nature of the question, what is it when I say I did it? What do anybody mean when somebody says I did it? What does it mean?
They were responsible.
They're responsible for it, okay. They're responsible. In which way? For example, I'll give you an example, okay. I'm talking now, right? At the same time I'm breathing, my eyelids are blinking, and I'm making all these gestures, and I don't know, I'm doing all these innumerable things. Can I say I am blinking? Can I say I'm breathing? Am I breathing?
Yes, you are breathing.
Can I say I am blinking?
It is happening kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
You're not
I am not.
You're not consciously.
Exactly. Right? I am not blinking. And I am not breathing. Nor am I doing any hand gestures. Why? Because I am unaware of it. When you are unaware of it, how are you doing it? Correct? Right? Then who is doing it? Prakriti is doing it. Right? So that is the... See, when we say, I am doing it, that means what? It means a specific thing. That means there is a conscious desire in me. That desire initiated actions that I did. That is only the ones that we can say, I did it. Right? Everything else, it's like in cricket, you swing and the ball hits the edge and goes for 6. Oh, what a shot. Can you say that? No, because you did not intend to do it. It just happened. So you are not the doer. Even though it was your action, it was not your intended outcome. Therefore, you did not do it. Right? So what exactly qualifies as something that you did? You need to have the intention to do it. Right?
Like a light switch example. You intend to switch the light on,
Right.
but it may not be under your control.
It is not in your control, right? So the thing is, that which you intend to do, right, is the conscious of I did it. Right? That's the I did it part is that. That which is happening in the body, that which you are not conscious of, you did not do it. I did not blink my eyes. I did not breathe. Breathing happened to me. Blinking happened to me. gestures happen to me. I can take conscious control of it and then do this. Then I did it. When I'm not aware of it, I didn't do it. It happened to me. Right? So, do you understand so what Krishna is saying? Prakrutehe kriyamanani karmani sarvasha. That means things are happening below our conscious level. Karta aham iti manyate is, we think I did it. When the meaning of I did it is, I need to have that intention and the power to do it. And which we don't, right? So if you look at it, take this as iceberg, right? So this 1%, the tip of the iceberg is what I doing is. The 99% is what happens below my awareness, which sometimes I will never know. I don't know how my heart is being regulated, how the blood is flowing. I don't know all those things. I don't know how my brain is working to bring all these thoughts to my consciousness so I can talk about that subject sanely. I don't know. But it all happens. Right? So all of this happens. And these are all below my conscious level. Right? I don't know how my memory works. But when I desire, I can recall whatever I have learned. Right? So that is all here. This is Prakriti. Right? 99% of my actions are Prakriti. 1% of my actions are Purusha, me, my intentions. Right? Is there any doubt on this? Or is there any disagreement on this?
At one point, one also wonders about the cause of desire, right? The desires happening to somebody also is almost out of your control. Right? The fact that you're intending based on a desire.
Right.
In itself because driven by something you don't know.
Right.
And there's another layer.
Yes, yeah. That's true, right? But at least my consciousness is aware of doing something based on a desire that arises in me. That is 1% or the tip of the iceberg of, and therefore that means this is a huge big elephant on which an ant is sitting. And as one of the stories I told, that elephant goes and smashes the door of a fort, and the ants which is riding on top of the elephant, they do a high five. Oh, we did it! Right? This is exactly what we are doing. Right? Prakrutehe kriyamanani karmani gunaihi karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. That ant says, I did it. High five.
So would you say that 1% is the difference between a man and an animal?
That 1%, exactly. That's correct. See, ahara, nidra, bhaya, maitunani is samanya to the whole animal kingdom, man included. And Mahabharata says, what differentiates man from animal is dharma, virtue, which comes here. Right? So, that's 1% is the difference between man and animal, correct.
So, Steve, the willingness of desire or your intention of desire, is that part of the 1%?
Yes. Your intention is that part of 1%. Your conscious intention, yes. If you are not aware of it, you are not the doer of it. Prakriti is doer of it, that nature does it. See, even this one, we are doing through nature only. There is no way I can express anything in this world without my body. Right? I can express only through body. So even this 1%, I have to express through body. There is no other means for Atma to communicate or to know other than through the body. So even this 1% has to take the media of the body to know and to do. Right? But at least this is a conscious awareness of things. This is completely mindless. This is what is called ajnana. This is ajnana. This is what is awareness. These are two things. So this is Prakriti, Kriyamanani Karmani, Ahankara, Vimodatma, Karta, Aham iti manyate. 1% is thinking he is 100%. When the reality is 1% and 99%. Right? So, what does all this mean? See, when you come to West, what does West say? Hey, you can change the world. Empowerment. But Krishna is changing your only 1%. 99% is not in your control. Aren't you disempowered with this thought? Even if this is reality. Let's say, yes, this is reality. I mean, nobody can argue against it. But isn't this disempowering? Shouldn't we be able to change the world?
By intention.
Yeah,
You just have intention. The rest will ride on the elephant.
exactly. That is the truth, right? So what is illusion of control? Krishna says, is the illusion of control is we think we control the end when we control the means. We think we control the outcome when we control the process only. One of the processes, one of the means. And that is all there is that we can control at all. There is nothing else we can control. Therefore, take this away. Focus on this. Right? Focus on means, because means is all that you have to achieve the end. See, end, yes, you should be, the only reason why you need the end is to get the orientation right? You need to know where you need to go. Otherwise, what means is meaningless without an end. Process is meaningless without an outcome, right? So you need an end to know where you want to go. That's about it. But then after that, everything is means, process. So Krishna says, we think we control the outcome when we control the process only, one of the processes only. We think we control the end when we control the means only, one of the means only. And that is the illusion of control.
But when they say increase your consciousness and things like that, does it mean that you increase that 1%?
It can never happen. But this 1% is very powerful. If it realizes that there is a 99% behind it, which is mindless. Because, what is this in other words? Habits. Right? Can you change habits? Yeah. But how can you change habits? You bring this one chunk to here, change, and then put it back, it will go automatically on its own. So this 1% can take small chunks from this 99% and change it, and that is what sadhana is, right? If this 99% was unchangeable, then there was no sadhana possible. But sadhana is possible because this 1% can take small chunks of the 99% and change it and put it back to that mindless state where your habits take you. Right? So that is, so your consciousness will never grow in those terms. Your consciousness, I don't even understand what it means. But when you say your conscious grows, I don't know.
Expansion of awareness, right?
Which is what? What does that mean?
I mean, is it like jnana and bhakti, when you become aware, you go more into it, then that allows you to...
Maybe it means clarity. If it means clarity, yes. The clarity which tells you, this is how it is. The clarity which tells you how to change, yes. But other than that, it doesn't mean it expands. That you can control everything. No. That is going into delusion further, right? If you think you can control everything. That is not possible. Right? So, what Krishna is saying is this. Guys, you can control just the means. Don't worry about anything else. Focus on that. That is the power. And that is the power because let me show here. Okay, this one, I think in one of the classes you brought about, why bhakti. I was not talking about bhakti because this chapter starts with jnana and karma. Remember? So what is bhakti? Basically feeling, right? This is feelings. This is thoughts or cognition. And this is actions. Right? Thoughts, feelings, actions. Right? Now, in these three, can you control feelings? When you are completely depressed, can you say, okay, let me be happy now and change?
Not really.
Not at all.
Not at all. Not at all. So this is never under conscious control. Feelings are products of these two. Right? And also can drive these two. Because that's why I show double direction arrow. But feelings are products of our actions and our thoughts. There is no other direct conscious control of feelings. Feelings happen to us. We cannot do anything about it. In terms of thinking, oh, let this feeling change. If that was real, no Upanishad or Gita was needed. Right? So we need all this because feelings cannot be directly changed. We cannot directly act on feelings. Can we change thoughts? Not much. You can, a little bit, you can try to change some thoughts, but it is very powerful. It will take, because these thoughts are that 99%. It is going to sway you a lot. Right? But yes, there is a limited control of thoughts. You can control a little bit of your thoughts, not. But what is in your direct control? Actions only.
I was going to say that the actions really forces your thoughts to change.
Exactly, right? When you are very depressed, your thoughts cannot be changed. Oh, okay, let me think some happy thoughts. Try it. I cannot do. Right? I don't think anybody can do that. But hey, let me go mow the lawn. Possible. Right?
So, I mean, action changes.
Actions, right? See, it is actions that change the feelings. Thoughts,
Personal actions, thoughts are the precursor to all actions. So even when you say...
not all actions. This is thoughtless action. Yeah, conscious actions.
Conscious actions.
Yes,
Any
yeah.
What's in our control is conscious actions.
Right.
Okay. So any conscious action is driven by thought. So there may be a change in thought pattern. For example, you mentioned let me go out and mow the lawn.
Yeah.
That thought has to first
That
arise
itself.
Yes.
for you to even go and do it.
Yes, but it initiates action,
Yes.
but that's about it. But let's say you don't initiate any action. You are trying to change your feelings from your thoughts only. Can that be done?
It's difficult.
Tough.
I mean,
Almost impossible.
I think it's a two-way out because let's say if you go to somebody's funeral, right, and you think, oh my God, this is going to happen to me one day. And then for a short period of time, your thoughts and everything, that will may change your actions to say, okay, I'm going to behave differently.
Yeah. No. See, that's what these two arrows are. Thoughts. Thoughts can initiate actions. Feelings can initiate actions. Right. That's this arrow. Actions can change feelings. Thoughts can change feelings. That's this arrow. Yeah. This is all the three are there. But what I'm asking is, what is the most easiest way to influence thoughts and actions? I mean, thoughts and feelings. Actions is the most easiest way to change the thoughts, to change the feelings. This is very difficult to change. This is impossible to change. This is doable. Right? And that is exactly, that's why Krishna in this chapter starts with what? Right? Arjuna says, hey, there's knowledge and karma. You say knowledge is better, understanding is better than karma. But why don't I give up karma and be in this one? That's like saying, let me change my feelings through my thoughts. Krishna says, first of all, it is wrong understanding to think that that actions you can completely give up. And the concept was what? In the first few verses. Actions are by default, inaction is not. We think inaction is default, but actually actions are default. Inaction is not. Inaction is just a resting state. Action is the default. Action is always the default state, not inaction. Right? So when action is default state, how do you transform that action to be more beneficial to you? That is enlightened actions. Right? That's what the concept of yajna is. How to transform any action into an enlightened action, which is concept of yajna. And then we dealt with the concept of role model, how the society needs role model. And then the concept of transformation. Transformation happens from within. You cannot force it from outside. Transformation needs to be inspired. You should not change somebody externally, but inspire change. Right? Na buddhi vedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshayet sarvakarmani yuktas karma samacharan. That means, do not confuse somebody who is doing something else, but do your thing the way it should be done so that they are inspired to change. Because change comes from within and it should be mimicked, not be forced. You cannot change or force the change. It should be, right? These are all the topics that Krishna dealt with. Now, what Krishna is saying is you control one of the means, and that is the most easiest way to transform your whole self. This one. You cannot sit in meditation and transform your feelings and your thoughts. It is by actions alone that you can. To get knowledge, you need to work. Right? Again, you need actions for that. To change feelings, you need to work. Right? Both. If you control this, if you can control this, then you control both these.
There's so much importance given to the meditation.
But meditation is action. Right? Meditation. See, feelings and thoughts cannot change without an underlying action at all. I mean, even meditation is an action. Reading book is an action. Sitting in class and actively focusing and learning is an action. Right? You need all these actions, and then you need all the other actions. The feelings and thoughts are riding on actions to change. Without actions, there is nothing else.
It's a very interesting thing because the word action usually brings up to mind physical action, right? But effort is mainly mental.
Action here means effort.
Effort, right? Effort is primarily mental.
Mental.
Right? I mean, we always think of physical movement, but most of our work is now mental work, it's not physical work, right? So that word usually implies that we're running around doing a lot of stuff.
Right.
It may simply mean contemplating hard and doing a little bit, hitting the right button, right? And
yeah. But just by sitting will not do much, right? So you need to have effort of bodily effort and mental effort both, right? So what Krishna is saying is, the vehicle of sadhana is actions, bodily and mental actions alone. And transformation cannot happen without action. So that is the basic theory of Karma Yoga. Action is what you have to transform. There is nothing else. And that is the means that is in your control. So do not worry about the outcome, do not worry about the end. Just worry about the process. Worry about the actions that you need to perform.
So are thoughts actions too?
Thoughts are not actions.
They're not actions.
They are understandings.
Thinking and thoughts are not actions.
Unless it initiates action, it is the basis of action, a conscious action. Otherwise, no. Right? So knowledge it's an understanding, right? Manas, it's an organ of both understanding and action.
Yes.
It is both. But when it initiates action, it becomes karmendriya. Otherwise, it's still jnanendriya. Right? So this is what Krishna is saying. This is illusion of control. Now he says, ahankara vimudhatma karta aham iti manyate. That means, what is our normal natural thinking? When all this is true, we, in our great omniscience, we think what? I did it. Karta aham iti manyate. They think that they did it. How? Ahankara vimuda atma. What does that mean? We are deluded by ego. What does that mean? We are deluded by the I.
We think we do the work. Right. When it has to be divine intention.
But isn't it I that is doing?
You are doing it, but without the Ishvara Icha talking.
Right.
So, even though you are doing it without.
you're doing, but there is no doer.
No. There has to be doer.
That's the
Otherwise,
illusion. That's the grand illusion.
no. Doer is not illusion. How much of it is done is illusion. If you think 100% is I, that's an illusion. If you think 1% is I, that's not an illusion. Doership is there. Otherwise, Veda says, go and do this sadhana. If you are not the doer, then who has to do? Right? Otherwise, you don't need anything for that if you are not the doer. Right? So, no doer means a toy, a mechanical toy that's going around. It's not a doer because there is no intentional action in it. But we have intentional action, so we are the doer.
No, all we are doing is controlling the process, the mechanism, the means.
Yes.
That's all we assume that the outcome is purely because of us, and essentially all we are doing is acting as enablers.
Correct. It's one of the.
We are influencing the outcome.
We are influencing the outcome. Correct.
We assume that we are the reason for the outcome. We are just the influencers.
Okay. What is this ahankara? See, if you go to second chapter, Krishna says, Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhiras tatrana mukhyate. That means, we in this body, where he's talking about the illusion of change, he says, the I is same, but the body changes from childhood to adulthood to, old age. Body is changing, but it was the same I that was the child, is the same I that was an adult, is the same I that's old, the old man. That I has not changed. That is the witness that is remained the same always. The I that I am today is the I that I will be tomorrow. But this body changes. The body is changing constantly. Right? That's the Prakriti and the Purusha. So is that the ahankara that Krishna is talking over there? Right? So let me explain this. So it needs some explanation. I need to probably erase all this. So we need to see what Krishna is talking about here, ahankara. That ahankara is a product, it's a tool of Prakriti. It is one of the antakaranas. Antakaranas is one of the tools, internal tools, or the tools of the mind. Right? See, in Indian traditions, in Vedanta, there is no dichotomy between body and the mind. That is in the West, right? Descartes' body and the mind difference. In Indian traditions, body and the mind are the same. They are one thing. There's a body and then there's the tools which are subtle. But they are all brain. It is a product of the brain. Without brain, you will not have any of those products. Right? There is no mind-body dichotomy in Vedanta. Right? There is a body-jiva dichotomy, Purusha-Prakriti dichotomy. But that's the spirit, the self, not the mind. Right? Mind is physical. Mind comes from Prakriti. It is not in jiva. Right? It's a tool. So what are the internal tools? What are the four antakaranas that we have? Four antakaranas. Check back the notes. What are the four antakaranas? These are basic things. I mean, you got to know this by heart.
Mind, jiva, and prakriti.
What is it that you use to focus? Sanskrit. Give me Sanskrit. One. Then?
What is that?
What? Manas.
Manas.
What do you... yeah.
Chitta.
And?
Ahankara.
Ahankara. Right? Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta. These are the four internal tools. Right?
This was the translation of those four.
That's why I'll show that. So, Manas, usually Manas we translate in English as mind. Right? Mind means everything. Right? Memory is also mind. Focusing is also mind. Knowing is also mind. So mind is all the things. But here, these are the properties of the brain. Right? These are still body. These are not different. They are the properties of the brain, but there are four functionalities of the brain. So what we shall do now is to look at how we know and how we do, and through how the information passes from the external world through the body, through the antakarana to the jiva. What is the subject of any experience ultimately?
The subject is
Who is the subject of an experience?
the experiencer.
The soul, the jiva.
Jiva,
It is jiva,
right?
yes.
So jiva is here. I'll write jiva here. So that is jiva. How can jiva experience? What is the nature of jiva? What are the three aspects of jiva. There are so many names with those combinations. Sachin is there.
Satchidananda.
See that name, Sachin is Sat Chit. Chidananda, Chit and Ananda. Satchidananda, right? Sadananda. See all those combinations, all those names are there. Right? Sat Chit Ananda, right? Existence, awareness and bliss. Three aspects of jiva. Jiva is the point of awareness. Right? You know because jiva is aware of it. This is called chit. Chit. Chit means awareness, to know. The capacity of chetana, to know, consciousness, conscious awareness. The subject of conscious awareness is jiva. Ultimately, everything that you feel, that you know, you are knowing because jiva is aware. It is of the nature of awareness. It can be aware of external things. So, this is where the experience ends. When it comes to chit, you are aware of it. Right? This 1% that I showed, the 1%, the subject of that 1% is chit. Okay? But now, let's say this is the external world. This is the external world. And there is something in the external world. What is the first thing that we interact the external world with Indriyas, right? So, Indriya is sense organs. And there are two kinds of sense organs. One is what?
Physical, subtle.
Correct, right? Sukshma Indriya, Stula Indriya. Stula means gross. That means the eye that we see here, that is a physical eye. That's called Stula Indriya. So this is the Stula. That means gross. Gross sense organ. Right? First thing that happens is external world interacts with the sense. And there is also called as Sukshma Indriya. There is a subtle sense organ. And what is this difference is what the subtle sense organ is that which we use to imagine, let's say eyes, eyes, to see the external light. We need external eyes, right? If you close your eyes and imagine light, you are seeing it through the internal sense organ. And I was thinking, how is this possible? And what does it mean? And I was reading some book. It says when you close your eyes and visualize light, it still lights up your visual centers in the brain, just like you're seeing physical objects outside. So that the lighting up of the physical centers in the brain does not differentiate between whether you're imagining light or seeing light. So I think subtle eyes is that center that can light up even when your external is shut down. Okay? So your gross eyes, which is your gross sense organ, your subtle sense organ.
Which is all in the brain. Subtle means brain.
Yeah, it's all in the brain. Yeah, it's all in the brain. Okay. Everything is in the brain, right? Other than this, everything is in the brain and the body. Jiva is the only thing which is external to it, everything. Right? So, subtle sense organ. Then what? Then what happens?
Interpretation.
Mind.
Go into mind, imagination.
Sanskrit, specific function.
Specific function.
Yes. Mind is a useless term. It doesn't specify anything. Manas. What is manas? Manas is, in Sanskrit it says, Sankalpa Vikalpatmakam Manaha. That means, manas is a functionality of the brain which brings in basically what? It is a tool of attention. Right? It is a tool of attention and the tool of imagination and Sankalpa, planning, future, and it's a tool of looking at options. Vikalpa means, should I do this, should I do that? When you are thinking in the mind, those thoughts in the mind, those are what manas is. Right? Manas is that. So, without manas, can you sense? You cannot, right? Sense organs can bring the feelings to the jiva only when manas is showing attention to it, right? Otherwise, when I'm touching this and I'm attending to something else, I'm not aware that I'm touching it. Only when I bring my focus, attention back to it, then I know. Otherwise, I don't know, right?
What's the one word translation of manas that you would use?
There's no translation. Manas is manas. I mean, there's no conception.
It is the sort of...
It is an organ of attention.
Okay. Attention.
Focus.
Attention and focus is manas.
Attention, focus, planning,
Ah.
and possibilities.
Options.
Options, yeah. That evaluation.
That is viveka, right?
No, discrimination is viveka. So that's the
Something
next
like
one.
that is part of that.
No, not
that's a separate one.
That's separate one.
Oh, okay.
Manas, so manas, it comes to manas. In the Kathopanishad, there is an example, an analogy of a chariot, right? There are 5 horses, the 5 indriyas, and there is the charioteer holding the reins of the horses, and that reins, it says, is manas. So manas is directly hooked to the horses, just like the reins are directly hooked to the horses. Manas is directly hooked to the. That is the one that controls where the horse goes. That's what manas does. Without manas focusing, senses cannot do anything. Manas has to focus. So this is manas. That's why the saying says, Manaseva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayoho. That means the difference between an enlightened man and a not enlightened man is his manas. What he focused on. That is the most powerful, element that we have is manas. If this manas focuses on the right thing, everything else falls in place. Right? So that is manas, which is an organ of attention, organ of planning, and all of those things. So this information flows from the outer world to the manas, where the manas says, I focus. The information is now in manas. And manas is connected to jiva. If that was all that is, then we would have just seen the world. Right? No, on top of it is what? Buddhi. What is buddhi? Nishchayatmakam buddhi. Nishchayatmakam. Buddhi is an organ of judgment, evaluation, value. We don't see things as just things. We say, hey, that's good, that's bad, I like it, I hate it. All of those things come. Where does all those come from? Buddhi is the organ of evaluation. No experience can pass through to jiva without its being evaluated. We see the world as an evaluation, as a judgment, not in it as it is. Right? Buddhi influences what manas sees and what manas passes on to jiva to know. Right? So this is nishchayatmakam buddhi. Buddhi, what is buddhi then? Is an organ of discrimination. It is an organ of evaluation. It evaluates the information that comes through it, through the manas, as what is good, what is bad, you like it, you hate it, all of those things. It gives a value to that information. But how does it give value to the information?
Chitta.
Right? Your experience. So chitta comes on top of it. Is the memory of your smaranatmakam chitta. What is smaranatmakam? That means all the memory of your experiences that you have had, that is used to judge, is chitta. So chitta feeds. Chitta is the most powerful. Chitta is the storehouse of all memories, and usually it is not information about person, it is feelings. They call it as the implicit memory, not the explicit. Implicit memory is knowing things as feelings, not as information, as feelings. So this is like that. Chitta is those feelings, those attitudes and all those things that shape our knowing, that shapes buddhi, and that evaluates the information that comes from the manas.
So when you drew the triangle before, that was what bhakti was, where you said it was feelings, and is that what you're talking about here?
What is that?
You drew the triangle. You put bhakti as feelings and...
Oh, here. Yeah.
So that's where the feeling part comes.
Yeah. The memory of feelings is all, any kind of memory is lodged in chitta. I mean, your memory is what chitta is.
Memory, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not the memory of, hey, this is a phone, this is this thing. A memory of the feelings.
Feeling inside.
Yeah, the feelings and attitudes that store out that is the one that goes from one life to another. Why don't you remember, who your wife was in the last life?
Unless
Because
the details. Some of it best forgotten.
Yeah,
Your wife doesn't care, you can say that.
because that is explicit, right? That's not feelings. That's just information. But we carry the feelings and attitudes from one life to another. So chitta, all these things go as a baggage of jiva from one body to another body, right? So this is a storehouse of all these feelings, which is the one which the buddhi uses to evaluate the information in the manas, which is hooked to indriya to get the information, right? So now all of these are there. Now what is ahankara? Ahankara is ego, and also comes on top here. It comes here. Ahankara,
Identity, right?
identity. And what is the job of ahankara? See, whenever I say I don't mean this. I mean this. This is the changeless. This is changing. What is the job of ahankara?
To basically give you the impression that you are the body.
No, yeah, but see,
Your identity is your body, physical self.
yes, but it's not just that. If you just look at Vedatmakam, ahankara is Vedatmaka. That means, what does ahankara do? It creates an island of an individual when even though that individual is connected to the world. It gives me the feeling that I am different, unique in the world. That uniqueness,
Separate.
the identity, the separateness that comes from ahankara. Even though I, as a body, am completely linked with nature. Right? It is just like, every body is linked with nature, right? An atom or something which is in my body, maybe tomorrow in some animal's body or something else, right? So, if you look at nature as a whole, something which is here is in one's body in somewhere else, it's in some other thing somewhere else. So, these are all linked. But what creates that separateness of identity is the ahankara. So, it's not just I as a body. Hey, I'm from this country, nationality, any identity, language identity, religion identity, any kind of identity where there is us and them, where there is me and others, that comes from ahankara. And therefore, there is no difference like that in terms of, there is no islands in this world. They are all interconnected. Ahankara, what it does is to create islands, an illusion of an island in an interconnected universe. Right? It does that. It's the differentiator. It's the differentiator not as buddhi, but without ahankara, buddhi cannot differentiate. Basically, ahankara sits on top of buddhi. Right? Ahankara creates the island and creates the identity so that you can know us and them. You can differentiate, you can understand, and all of the distinction and all of those things happen because of ahankara.
Which there's a necessary function to have.
Exactly.
Not completely.
All of these are necessary functions to have. But ahankara is not constant. Right? Okay, let me ask you. What happens when there is too much ahankara? Complete island. Right? Complete self-importance. I is more important than others. Right? See, but nature has functions for each one of them. Right? What is the function of nature, ahankara, which nature intends? See, all of this, when used, are tools of sadhana. When abused, are tools of samsara. Always remember. See, people say anger is bad. Is anger bad?
Not at all.
Fear bad? No. When used in the proper evolutionary way that it was meant to be, it is a tool, right? And what does anger do? It gives you energy for action. Basically, that's what it does. Anger gives you energy for action. But when it becomes destructive, then that's wrong. That's bad. But when it gives energy to act, that's good. Right? It will make you get up and go and do. Anger is good. What about fear? Existential. Very, very important. Otherwise, I will fall off, from the bridge. Nope, nothing is stopping me. Nothing is stopping from anybody going and self-destructing. What is preventing self-destruction? Fear. Very important function and very necessary function. Right? So all of those things are needed. The same way, too much of fear is bad. Too little of fear is bad. Appropriate fear, optimal fear, correct. Right? Same way, too much of ahankara creates an island where me is very, very important, others are not.
What happens when there's too little ahankara?
Too little ahankara, doormat. I don't matter, others are important. You don't want to be a doormat, right? That means your interests are not taken care of when you are a doormat, right? When too much ahankara is there, your interest trumps all others' interests. That's not good. Appropriate ahankara, that means me and others as well. We are all connected, interconnected. Live and let live. That is appropriate ahankara.
But then in bhakti, when a disciple surrenders totally to God, what's happening to that devotee's ahankara at that point?
The entire sacrifice of the ego. Right?
See, that...
If you assume that you're not the doer and you say, somebody else is doing and
there's no sacrifice. See, you cannot sacrifice ego like that. I mean, either ego can become less or more. Ego is changing, right? You can become very selfless in terms of your ego is low, and then, others, you focus on others. As long as
eradicating is not possible, but managing.
You can always manage ego, right?
Control.
You can manage ego, and because when the ego goes down, you can go with others. When ego goes up, you separate yourself from others. That's a tool of separation, right? As you increase the ego, you don't want to meet with anybody. As you decrease the ego, you become one with everybody. But too less of an ego is bad. Too much of an ego is bad. Appropriate ego, but what you are talking about, surrender, it's surrender to God, not to society. I'm talking about doormat. Right? So, anybody who's saying, I'm surrendering to God, is surrendering the ego to God. Ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. Now he's saying karta Ishvara. Ishvara karta, not me. That is not surrender. I mean, that's not selflessness. Right? So what I'm talking about is, in interactions within society, you should have appropriate ego and you should be aware of the level of ego. Right? Why ego is there? Why is ego there? Why did Prakriti give you ego? So that you can take care of your interests, right? When you need to take care of your interests, you need to create that identity. If some other religions are poaching on Hinduism, you cannot say, that's fine, all of them are one, I don't have any identity. Then you are going to destroy it, right? So you need to seek the identity, so you differentiate, right? It's needed for survival. Otherwise, you mix with everybody else, they all survive, you don't survive. Right? So you need to be able to discriminate on when to use ego and when not to use ego. And when it is a tool of survival and when it becomes a tool of destruction. So ego is that important. Right? If you know at what level it is very important. So when you said doership, this one,
excessive.
This one, assuming doership, that is not correct. Why? Because this is a construction of Prakriti. This is always the doer. This one assumes I did it by saying I did the 100% of it.
So its function should only be to create a separation feeling, but the actual intent, etc., the direction is from Jiva. It thinks that it's giving the direction, but actually separation.
Thinking, feeling, doing, all of them come here. These are all the filters that filter the information coming, and Jiva knows through. Jiva does not have access to the external world other than this path. Right? Only through some sadhana, they get intuitive knowledge. When they say, pratyaksha jnana. That is later on, and after this we'll pass through all of those stages. But all for us, the only avenue that we have to know is through this path.
It's all about filter management.
Yeah, filter management. Basically, it's filter management, right? But you need to, yes.
How do you titrate ahankara in yourself? How do you know how much ahankara is good? Because you're not aware that I've got too much ahankara or I've got too little ahankara. So how do you know that? How do you titrate it?
You need to become aware. That's the first thing, right? I mean, the first principle of the second chapter is become aware.
What's the sadhana for that? What is it? What is the sadhana for that?
Becoming aware.
How do you do that?
To become aware?
No, not, to become aware how much ahankara that you have and how much is good for you.
Oh, how much is good for you is, again, see, Vedanta does not say, this is the appropriate ahankara that you have. It's your self-knowledge. I mean, you will feel it when you get there. If it is differentiating you too much, making you an island, then it is basically, taking you in the wrong direction. It is taking you, if it is, exterminating your identity itself, and you're merging into the society, then you're going too far on the other side. I mean,
what comes to mind is that we are trying to come up with the formula of, do I have 40% ahankara, 60% as a one-time assessment. Whereas it is contextual, in every context,
yes,
that particular day, you want to clearly be aware that one was excessively arrogant or excessively shy. So we can only speak for that day. We cannot say, based on this day, my arrogance level is permanently at 70%.
No, you can.
That was my question. My question is, I do things with my level of ahankara today, right? You may think that I'm very arrogant and I'm very too much ahankara. Right. I have no idea how the others are reacting.
Correct. Yes, that's a real. Yeah,
that's a dilemma of perception. I don't think we can change somebody's perception.
No, the dilemma of perception is because of ahankara.
But can I change somebody's perception of me? That means I have to go try to make him think that I'm not really arrogant.
See, the very thought that you can change somebody else's perception is ahankara, right?
Cannot change it.
But the thing is, the thing is, the knowledge of self is not just what you know about yourself, what others say about you as well, right? It's like some parts of it I know, some parts of it I don't even know. So, what you are, if you have to write a self story of who am I, in America they say you have to write your own story. But in India, the story comes from others. Your mother will say, I will tell you what you are. Right? Your mother, your father, your parent, your sisters and brothers, they know, your friends, who you are more than what you know about yourself. And that's the story, right? Who I am is not just my story that I tell myself, it is a story others tell about me as well. That's the big picture, right? So if you think somebody is arrogant or somebody is not arrogant, that the feedback has to come from people who surround you. I mean, if you surround yourself with yes men, then that's again, But that's how it is. It's self and not self. You know a part of the story, others know part of the story. The whole story is made up of all these parts.
So, Sunil, how can we tie this model, which is very beautiful, to the statement that knowledge can be used to burn karma, or knowledge can be used to mitigate karma. That knowledge part, I think it's somehow tied to the gentleman's question too.
Right.
Is how do I know, for example, that knowledge part can be tied to this?
No, when you say mitigate karma, I don't know. Are you talking about the chitta?
Yes, chitta and...
Or are you talking about karma theory?
No. So can we tie this to karma theory? That's my first question. How can we use this model?
No. The link is the daiva, whatever comes from our past. Where is it lodged? Here. Right? My chitta carries the samskaras. What does samskara mean? Samskara means the feelings, the attitudes that came from my previous life or lives into this life having effect on my behavior. All the samskaras are in chitta. You can say this is coming from the genes or it's coming from the external environment, all of those things. But they are lodged in chitta. Right? That's where it is. All the prarabdha karma, all of those things, when it affects the mind, it comes from chitta. Right? We have to carry the baggage, otherwise the karma has to be somewhere, and the baggage is here. Right?
But this particular, for instance, this class, right, this knowledge actually burns karma because you're directed in the right action. I mean, that kind of a thing where knowledge does burn karma, like he's saying.
Right.
By the right knowledge, we are sort of mitigating useless activity by correct understanding.
Right.
If you don't follow up on that, you won't. If you don't follow up, if you just listen and then you don't follow up on
Right,
it.
right.
The
Yeah.
action is also a problem.
Right, yeah. Listening, that's why listening is only part of shravana. That means process of collecting information. Manana, reflection, didhyasa, change, transformation, that is changing. If what you hear does not transform you, it is useless. Like what we do in the class, if we go outside and forget about it, what did it burn? Nothing, it burned out. Burning means you are changed, you transform. If it's not transforming you, it's useless. Basically, you know some information and you can recall it and participate in a discussion about it. But did it do anything about what you're doing? No. So that means it's useless. Knowledge that does not transform is useless. Right?
Making me very depressed. It takes a long time for transformation.
No. But if it
I
is...
just have one question. I'll ask him one question. Do you ever feel within family or within a friends group that you get isolated, feeling of isolation, that you somehow feel that you're just slightly isolated? Do you feel that?
No.
Is that a very good balance?
See, I think the point there being that the larger the population that think that your ahankara, ego, that right, they say you're a good man. Okay, that is the real testament to your ahankara being at the optimum level, correct? Because the larger the number of people, let's say Mahatma Gandhi, okay, millions of people said he was absolutely probably next to God, right? So probably he was, because otherwise only one person would have said he's a great man, and everybody else would have said this guy's got too much ego, too much arrogance, right?
Well, I mean,
That is the point, I
but
guess.
like you said, he was able to balance his own
Right,
very
yeah.
well. Like, it didn't matter if he was in the streets of bad streets and still be able to balance and talk to people, or he could be in the palaces and still talking to people in the same balanced form. Right? I mean, he was able to balance that.
Beside the godly nature of the person, if you go into mass appeal, we have temple spirit for movie actors and politicians.
No, it's not mass appeal. See, that's what Hiranmayana Patrana is, what it means, right? See, when I say, it is the opinion and the story of the people who know you, right? Not a movie star. You know him as a movie star, not as a person, right? I mean, so it is like, you are probably, I would say, the inner core of, you have different levels of friendships, right? Your acquaintances all the way to your family and the inner core of people who actually know you, who deal with you on a day-to-day basis. They know the story. One part of the story, you know another part of the story, which is, your internal experience of yourself. That makes the whole picture, right? Some of it nobody knows. But this probably is kind of a tool which can help us whether, to tell us where our level of ahankara is.
So getting feedback is an important part of the sadhana.
Yeah, that's what they do in companies, right?
Feedback, closed loop feedback. Sadhana.
Why feedback means if I perform something that's selfish or arrogant, I know it internally. Okay, means
But what he's saying is some of the veil of ahankara is such that
We may not know.
you don't know that you are arrogant, right? Many times it happens, right? Others know how arrogant you are, but you don't know yourself because you're blind to it. That's what ahankara does. I am important, others are not. So in that case, what do? When I think I'm right, but the other story is not exactly similar to what I think I am, right? So you have to balance both. to know whether you have the appropriate level of ahankara or not. But the point is, all of these have a purpose, a use, and that's when they work. When it's abused, that's when they are bad. It becomes a tool of moksha when they're used appropriately. It becomes a samsara tool when they are abused. Too much of ego is an abuse, too less of an ego is an abuse as well. Too much of anger, if it makes you act, do things, it's good. Fear, if it stops you from doing something nonsense, very good. It's not bad. Fear is not bad. Anger is not bad at all. All of these things are good if they are used. Because all the tools that Prakriti has given us, it has given us because of a reason. And if it's used in that reason, and you are consciously aware of that reason, it's fantastic. They all become tools of sadhana.
See, this reminds me of the annual performance review thing, right?
Right.
Where the person... This is really where what it comes down to, right? So, if the perception is not... Basically, we're seeking acknowledgement. The ahankara wants more recognition and so on and so forth. And when we don't get enough, right, maybe it's a good thing because, you're actually seeking more ahankara.
No.
The feedback is bad.
No, ahankara is seeking more ahankara. Right? See, ahankara says, I am important, nobody else is. And if the others are saying, you are important, self-importance is inflating. Right? So ahankara seeks more ahankara feedback about itself, about its value.
Working for companies is a good yagna, a good sadhana, because they deflate. The continuous deflation. Every year.
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year, there is no more
Okay, so that is what ahankara vimuda atma karta aham niti manyate. That's what it is. This is not the jiva who is aware of it. It is the ahankara which is saying, hey, I did all of it. Right? That is what vimuda. Vimuda means it is deluding you into thinking that, hey, I did more than what I actually did. Therefore, I am important and I am empowered. Right? Let's come back to that question of empowerment.